Hello and welcome back to Annie Off the Cuff. Today I am sharing 6 things that I wish I would have done sooner, or 6 things that I missed out on in my strength and hypertrophy training as a personal human being. So not as a professional, but in my own experience training. These are just things that I wish I would have done sooner. If you're new here, I am Annie Miller. I am a strength and conditioning specialist as well as a business mentor. I help you learn as you train and enjoy your lifts again without having to figure it out for yourself. So starting off, I have been training for 15 years now, pretty seriously for an amateur. I have not done any powerlifting competitions or bikini competitions or anything of that sort, but I have always trained for life. I've always done strength training, barbell movements, kettlebell movements, some level of conditioning. Not always, we will get into that. And one of the first things that I wish I would have done in my early 20s was taken creatine. What the fuck? Why was I not taking creatine? There were so many gains left on the table because I didn't take any supplements. I didn't even take protein for a long time, and it was just out of, I didn't know. I didn't know, and I didn't have anyone to tell me what I should be taking who I trusted, frankly. I was getting good results. I had decent genetics, and I could just train and build muscle and build strength and adapt well enough for what I was wanting. So I wish I would have taken creatine earlier, just because, like I said, there were so many gains left on the table. I could have pushed harder in training, both load as well as capacity within that load. So training harder for longer periods of time, especially in my 20s, when you can handle that volume. Your body can handle that volume. You're very resilient. I wish I would have taken creatine, and I didn't. So that is number 1. I wish I would have taken creatine. We love creatine now. Number 2 is I wish I would have hired a coach. Now, this is kind of a wish because it wasn't realistic. I didn't have the funds to hire a coach, frankly. And I guess the positive flip side of this is that I just did a load of programs. German volume training, Wendler 531, hatch squat, juggernaut training systems, getting shit off of bodybuilding.com. Like, I lived for doing programs and learning about program design, which absolutely shaped the coach I became and kind of my area of focus within program design. I have a ton of experience, like a decade plus of doing different programs and then learning how to piece those together, take certain parts of, oh, this is why this works from that method. Could I tack that on to this method? So anywho, I wish I would have hired a coach, simply because a coach expedites your gains, can assess you for potential injury and avoiding that. There's just so much to be gained from working with someone one-on-one. Even just reaching goals that I had, whether they were aesthetic goals or performance goals, I made do by myself, but obviously it's always, well, not always, this industry. It can be a very good idea to hire a coach to expedite whatever results you are trying to get from your training, be it performance or aesthetic. If I had the funds, I 100% would have loved to hire a coach. Number 3 is that I wish I would have been introduced to tempo earlier. Now, I was introduced to tempo pretty early in my training when I was interning as a strength and performance coach for athletics at University of Portland. So I was still in college. I want to say I was 21 or 22, but I wish even before that I would have been introduced to tempo. And even once I was introduced to it, I still for a fair amount of time went through the motions of workouts and movements and just could have gotten more out of, like I said, those early 20s if I would have paid more attention to range of motion and using tempo. I'm grateful that I was introduced to it pretty early in my career, but I would have liked to be introduced to it and maybe adhered to it more. That's what I should say. I wish I would have adhered to tempo and maximized its benefits earlier in my training career. Okay, so number 4 is I wish that I would have adopted a something over all or nothing mentality sooner in my training. I think that this is pretty common with anyone early in a habit or in training especially, is that like if you can't follow the program, and I mentioned I followed a lot of programs, if you can't follow it 100%, if you are gonna miss one lift, if I can't start my lifts on Monday, then I might as well just not lift this week, which is like that's so silly when we say that out loud, right? Like as if that makes sense. but I do wish that I would have adopted a half the lift is better than not lifting at all. 2 lifts per week is better than 0 lifts per week. Like, yes, 5 lifts per week is lovely if you're supposed to get 5 lifts in. We love 100% adherence, but I left a lot of gains on the table, a lot of reps on the table, a lot of long haul consistency on the table by having that all or nothing mentality early in my training. And I would say probably for the first like 5 to 7 years of training, I probably operated more in that mindset of all or nothing than in the something is better than nothing. It wasn't really until I got into building my business and getting serious about that, and then obviously becoming a mother in the last 2 years, that I really adopted, because life simply demanded it. And I saw that. I was kind of pushed to a state where, okay, if I am waiting for perfect, if I'm waiting for perfect sleep, if I'm waiting for to be able to do the program exactly as programmed, I'm literally never gonna lift. I am never going to get my lift in. So we better adopt this whole something is better than nothing real quick. And that is how I'm going to make gains, or at least maintain what I have built over the years. So really, really wish I would have adopted the something is better than nothing earlier in my training career. That does kind of segue into number 5, which is prioritizing sleep and rest for better gains. I spent the early part of my 20s in a state of soreness that I do not recommend. 0 out of 5 stars. Like, can't walk sore every time I lifted legs. Hypertrophy does not demand that level of muscle damage. We know we need mechanical tension. That is for sure. We need to progressively overload the muscles. How much damage needs to happen to those muscles? I don't know that we have a definitive answer on that from the literature. I definitely sacrificed sleep in my early 20s, mainly because of being in college, working, interning, just not getting adequate sleep to recover from the volume and load of training that I was doing. I went freaking hard in my early 20s, and this is why I say this whole list is because I could have yielded so much more from the training that I did. There's no way that I even have a desire to train now with the intensity that I trained in my early 20s. I can also get a lot more out of the work I do now because of adopting all of these things that I wish I had earlier. So sleep, I love sleep. I always have loved sleep. It's just that I wasn't getting enough of it. I would have loved to get more sleep then, but just to get more sleep, not for the purpose of having better recovery from my training. Last one, number 6. It pains me to say this one. Like, I really mourn the work that could have been done if I didn't make this mistake. And that was doing high intensity cardio on the motherfucking stair machine before every lift. I did it religiously before every lift. Like, every combination of high intensity interval you can think of, Annie was doing on the Stairmaster before her lift. Why was I doing that? It's not that cardio ruins your gains. I have videos on that. Go check it out. If cardio ruins your gains, the link will be in the description. It's just that I definitely was not able to give all that I could have given to the lift and building muscle because I was entering those sessions fatigued. 100%. There's no way that I wasn't. I remember the feeling of doing my cardio and then entering my warm up and starting my lift like beat, because I was going hard in the cardio. I don't know why. It wasn't like to burn fat. I was probably just using it as my warm up, I assume, and then would enter my lifting session dead. So I didn't always do it. Sometimes I would do the cardio afterwards, but I wish I would not have done that to myself at that time in my training. That is number 6. High intensity cardio before my strength training. Just silly. That wraps it up. Those were the 6 that I felt were most important to me. I always, valued form. I always valued good movement patterns and mobility and doing strength work and doing hypertrophy work. I really am happy that I had that foundation early in my training. Obviously, I went to school for this, so I have my exercise and sports science degree. So from kind of 18 on, I was in this world and practicing what I was learning, and I'm so grateful for that because I could apply whatever I was learning to my current training and all those different programs that I was following. So really grateful for that. These were just the 6 things that I wish I would have honed in on, done, learned earlier, adhered better to in my training. If you have things you wish you would have done better earlier or you missed out on earlier in your training, drop them below in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Annie off the cuff. I'll see you in the next one.